I'm with Robert Varden. We are at TISE East, and we are in Orlando. And how are you so far at this show?
Doing great. You know, actually, the show's been a little better than I thought so far. It really has.
I won't ask you what your expectations were, but I just got here, so I can't really make a value judgment on it. But it looks like there's a reasonable amount of people up and down this aisle in front of us.
You know, the traffic hasn't been heavy, but the few people that we've talked to have been some pretty darn good leads. They really have.
Now, since we talked last, there's been some wholesale changes. The CFI is now under the wing of the WFCA, and you're in charge.
Correct.
And you're out of Kansas City, as I understand.
Our corporate offices are in Lenexa, Kansas, but we also now, since we opened up the school, which also has an office in it there in the Dallas area.
So the shifts, now that this is under the wing of the WFCA, talk about that other than the schools. I want to ask you about the school.
Well, there's really not much of a shift. I mean, as far as other than it gives us opportunities and resources that we've never had. So it's huge for us. But, you know, even some of the CFI people, they were a little concerned that, oh gosh, now CFI, an installer organization, are we going to be ran by a group of retailers being a retailer? That's not the case. CFI is still, we're just taking what we had and we're just building heavily on that. And with the resources of the WFCA, it's just huge. Big benefit.
So you basically have the core of installers who have been at the center of the CFI. They're still basically the same.
Yes, sir. Absolutely.
Now, the schools, I guess to open schools, you obviously have changed a lot of the long-term goals of the organization. Talk about those goals and what you're achieving, what you want to achieve.
Dave, as we've all seen over the industry in the last 2 years, 3 years maybe, but heavily in the last year is this crisis for installers. I mean, you've done reports about it. So when we looked at that about 2 years ago, we, as CFI, we knew we had to not necessarily make some changes, but actually start taking advantage of some of the sources we had thought to do years ago, such as the school. We've had plans and things to do schools because we've had people that have come to us for 20 years and said, hey, I need more installers. I need better trained installers. But never with the urgency like they have in the last year and a half. So we started the school initiative back in March. Went out and found a facility actually close to where I live so that it was kind of my project. We went out and got a 10,000 square foot facility. It was just an empty warehouse, but it was insulated, heated, cooled, which, summer in Texas, you need air conditioning. And did a little bit of build out. So we had some offices in the front, basically 2 large classrooms in the back. We've got a soft surface classroom where we do all the carpet training. We've got a hard surface classroom. They're both about 3,000, 3,500 square feet. We did some unique things, like, for instance, if we're doing a hardwood laminate class, we've got typically small compressors running for pneumatic nailers, and they're kind of noisy. So instead, we put a big compressor in the back. We piped air through the walls. We did a lot of unique things. Of course, we're consulting, some of the experts in the industry as far as manufacturers, NWFA on the modules and how they should be built on the hard surface for wood. And for instance, in the carpet classroom, we'll basically have a 3-bedroom house with 2-foot walls, along with the other small modules that we'll bring guys in and train them on the carpet side. So it's pretty unique. It's an exciting venture for us.
Well, obviously there's a major need. Now, finding people to get in the program and the duration of the training. Talk about that.
Well, we've looked on both sides, the recruiting side and the placement side. Obviously, the placement side came real quick. We've got people calling us, I need your students. On the recruiting side was a little tougher. We're working with veterans programs, job fair programs, high school programs. There's just so many, and I think with the need that we have, you're going to have to approach them all because you're only going to get a few from each market. When we work with the veterans programs, for instance, and that's why it's going to be interesting to see how the industry embraces all of this because, this shortage of installers, it affects everyone. I think I might have mentioned to you before about the survey we did back beginning of the year when we wanted to do on the school project about, we sent a survey out to all of, CFI body, thousands of contractors. One of the questions we had in that was on the age of your installation force. How long they've been on the floor. And we grouped it in categories, 1 to 5, 5 to 10, 10 to 15, etc. And, we found that 60% of the 3,000 we came back, 60% of the installers today have been on the floor for 15 plus years. Many of them 20 and 25 year categories. And in that little 1 to 5 category was 4%. You do a little bit of math and you see that in 10, 15 years, we're going to lose 60% of our installation force. So whether you make a bucket of glue, you make a piece of carpet, you make, a piece of tack strip, it affects everyone. And then, of course, talking with various different groups that want to be involved in this process, we realized, too, one school is not going to do it. We've since then we're looking right now at 4 locations that I hope to have up. The second and the third I'll have up probably by just after the first of the year. By summer, we should have that 4th. We're actually looking at probably 12 over the next 3 years.
And this will be around the country, obviously.
Absolutely. Yeah, because, you start taking guys away from, flying in somewhere, although we've had a lot of that. I mean, even with the first school, we did that program in Brazil, and suddenly I'm getting emails. They want to send students in from Brazil to the school in Texas. But, we have a 5-week course. In 5 weeks, we have, we've been doing this a long time, Dave, and with the techniques and the processes we have to teach a student, in 5 weeks, we can take a guy that's never had a knife in his hand, and in 5 weeks, we can have him go into that 3-bedroom basic and do a basic install. And, there's a little bit of things up front as far as criteria that he'll need to meet as far as physical abilities, he or she, to be accepted in for that. But the biggest piece of that, too, is you're talking the materials we go through, the cost of that. It's going to be, we've roughly figured we're looking at about $1,000 a week per student. So you figure a 5-week course, you're looking at about $5,000. The veterans programs especially, they don't want them to have to pay anything. So while we can get some buy-in there, and I think the student has to have some buy-in, we need a lot of scholarships. The manufacturers of various products, I think, are going to have to step up if they want these installers. I really do.
Now, we would also see them at the other end when to recruit a young guy, and he's going to almost need a job at the other end. Is that going to be part of this situation?
I haven't seen any problem there. Even friends that I talk to that have labor shops or retailers, every one of them, when you going to have your first graduates? I could use 5. I could use 10. And then, of course, the buying groups that we're talking with, they're desperate for them. So on the recruitment side, it's looking like that's not an issue at all. I think the biggest piece is going to be more on the recruiting side more than the placement side, excuse me.